Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org, and I'm going to take you back. I'm going to give you a blast to the past in pop culture. Do you remember the movie Star Trek: The Next Generation? I know, kind of nerdy of me to bring you back to those days, but this was like an early 90s movie, and it got me really thinking, because lately I realized like I'm the main villain from that movie. Do you remember what the plot in that movie was? You probably don't, because you just remember the characters, etc. It's Star Trek. They're always up to some shenanigans. But actually, the plot of the movie was really interesting. In that plot, what was happening was that the Enterprise was fighting this main evil villain, and the villain was creating trouble because there was this magical wave that rippled through the universe. And it's like a wave of energy that ripples through. And whenever that wave of energy comes to contact, if there's somebody standing in the presence of that wave, then what happens is they get transported back in time in their mind into reliving their best memories. So it's like this euphoric nostalgia. It's almost like this drug that they get hooked on. And this was called the Nexus. And so the main character, the plot, is, the story goes, that this main character, when he was a young boy, he encountered this Nexus and it felt so good for him. It was such a nostalgic moment, such a hit of euphoria, that he then spends the rest of his life chasing and finding where this wave is going to go. And he's now trying to control the wave, because the wave is random and sporadic, and it's traveling through the universe, and you can't really catch up to it. But his plan was to destroy civilizations and planets and all this, just so that he can get at this Nexus, and so that he can feel as good as he felt back then. And I've realized that the last 5 years for me were really much like this guy chasing the Nexus and trying to get back to that place, except it was a little bit different. The way it was different, I'm not chasing after some nostalgic memory from the past, but here's what happened with me. After I graduated college, I really wanted to become a game designer, and so I spent about 8 months right after my graduation working on a big project that I needed as part of my portfolio so that I can get hired by a studio. No studio would hire me unless I had something good to show them, so I figured, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a game, and I'm going to put it out there to the public, see what kind of reactions I get. I'm going to learn in the process, get some good experience, and do what I love doing, which is creating games, and then hopefully get hired and finally be a professional designer. And so I went through, I designed the game, I worked my butt off to program it, to do all the artwork for it. I basically was a one-man shop and did everything that I needed to do to get this launched, and it was a mod for Oblivion. Maybe you played it, it's called Lost Spires. And then anyways, long story short, I ended up really working hard on that and launching it, releasing it. I was really happy with it myself, but then much to my surprise, I was really kind of astonished that it ended up being the #1 mod for Oblivion, and it got downloaded over 100,000 times. And what I loved seeing wasn't just those numbers. I mean, the numbers were certainly rewarding because I felt like my design senses got validated. It's always nice to have the external rewards kind of match the pleasure that you get in working on the project. And for me, that really was a labor of love. It was something that I really was passionate about, and I put it out there, and I would have honestly been happy if it hadn't been played or downloaded at all. It was just satisfying for me to do, plus I was doing it for work reasons. But on top of this, I get flooded with a bunch of user comments, and I got flooded with all these ratings and reactions and rave reviews for this mod, and basically people were so in love with it, they liked it so much, they got so much value out of it, they loved playing it so many times, that it became kind of like a cult hit within the modding community for Oblivion, and it was really a surreal experience to watch that. I remember when I worked my ass off to launch the mod, and I set a time schedule for myself, and at that point I was really disciplined because I knew that if I didn't finish by a certain point, then I would never finish it. So I set a launch window in August, and I said that by the end of August I would launch, and finally the end of August was coming up, and then it was like the last day of August, and I couldn't push back anymore, and I still had so much work to do on the mod. I wasn't satisfied. There were still many bugs to work out, so I was ironing out all the bugs and putting in all the final little polishes on it, but I had to release, and people were waiting for it and asking me when it's going to launch, and I'm like, well, I'm going to launch just like I promised at the end of August. And so the last day I ended up crunching, and I ended up working for 24 hours straight to get every possible bug that I could out of this thing. And I literally, I've never done this before, I like nearly worked myself to death. I was so delirious working on the bugs that I felt like I had an out-of-body experience, but I had to launch. So anyways, I ended up doing that, launching, and then as soon as I launched, I didn't even look at the reactions. I just went to sleep and like slept for a day. And then when I came back, the thing was still full of bugs, and people were reporting bugs, but people were also reporting how happy they were, how thrilled they were, and just like thanking me and asking questions. And that sense that I got from about that point when I launched at the beginning of September, this was I think in 2007 or 2008, 2007 I think it was, and then for the next about 6 months, I just remember riding this wave. And it was the greatest feeling that I ever felt. And this was a feeling that I never ever felt before in my life. And I haven't felt really since. And it was the pride that you get from seeing your creative work out there. And not only the pride that you get in putting the energy into the creative work, but then seeing it validated by other people. And it's not so much about you wanting the validation, but it's more about like, yeah, you know, that put a smile on someone's face. And that was my work that did that. And not only that, but it was the fact that I gave myself permission to trust my creative direction on this project. And that I had to take creative risks, and I had to say, you know what, are people really going to like this game? Are people going to like the story that I put into it? Are people going to like the artwork that I did here? Are people going to like these directions that I chose? And I just said, you know what, I'm not going to care what people like. I'm just going to do what I like, what I feel is right, what I would want as a gamer. And I ended up going with that decision, and I ended up putting it out there, and people ended up really loving it. And I felt very validated by that, and it felt awesome. It just felt awesome to be able to go out there and to share what I consider a gift of mine at the time was my design sense, to be able to share that with people and to bring joy to people's lives with that. And to me, that was such a moment of pride that really lasted not just for a day, not a week. It really lasted for like 6 to 12 months. That I knew that was it. Somehow I just randomly stumbled upon the feeling that made me most engaged with life. And the feeling that I really wanted to, like, if I could latch onto that and to hold it, or if I could just like bottle that feeling and sell it to other people, to me that's the greatest feeling in the world, is to have some sort of creative vision. Whether it's a vision for a business that you want to build, or something you want to do with your career, something work-related, and then to go out there and to labor for it, and to build something new, create something unique, create something that you're really passionate about, and that you can get other people passionate about. And then going out there and then saying, here's a gift, take it. And sure, you can charge money for it, whatever, but in the end, you're giving a gift. You're giving yourself in a little package, in a service or in a product. You're giving this to someone, and you're like, this is my heart. I'm pouring my heart out to you. Here it is. And then when you see that person is happy with it, and that they accept it, and that they love it, and they want more of it from you, that is like the greatest pleasure in life. And to me, that's the sense of creative contribution that you can have. And that you can get when you're really on top of your game with your job and your work and your career. And that, what to me makes the difference between just having a job and having a career, and then really having a life calling where you're putting yourself into your work. You really care about your work. You're bleeding into your work, and then you're sharing it with others, and it's something positive that's making a big positive contribution to society, to other people. And, you know, I'm not under some grand illusion. I don't think that this little game project that I made, in the grand scheme of things, really made that big of a difference. But it was still enough of a positive difference that I could get those feelings from it. You know, I didn't cure cancer. I didn't cure AIDS. I didn't put the first man on Mars or do anything super ambitious like that. But even putting a game out there that someone could play for, let's say, 10 to 15 hours and have a blast playing it, and me just knowing that, you know, they played that, and for them, that was 15 hours of pleasure that they received for free. I put this thing out for free. I could have charged money for it. People still would have paid. But the fact is that they were playing it, and they loved it. And, you know, someone might have had a bad day at work that week when I released, or someone might have been having a shitty situation in their family, they might have had a relationship breakup, and then all of a sudden this game launches, and then they play it for 15 hours, and they kind of escape, and they enjoy the things that I put in there, they enjoy the story, they enjoy the artwork, and they just kind of get drawn into it, they play it, and then they get something from it, right? That's me making a positive impact on the world.